am Amy Vetter, and welcome to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. This valuable time is for you to pause in your day and go on your own self-journey. Discover the beliefs that are holding you back from living your best life at work and at home. Learn from the guests on this show as they share their inspirational stories on how they found ways to break internal beliefs that were no longer serving them. Because if you believe you can, you will. And our podcast begins now. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs, where I interviewed Todd Shapiro, the president and CEO of the Illinois CPA Society, one of the largest state CPA societies in the nation, representing more than 23,000 accounting and finance professionals. Prior to joining the society in 1998, he amassed 20 years of financial and managerial experience as director of finance for Unilever, a multinational consumer packaged goods company, as well as Helene Curtis, Quaker Oats, Zenith Electronics, and Continental Bank. Shapiro is regularly recognized as a thought leader in the profession and has been named to Accounting Today's list of the top 100 most influential people in accounting for the last 5 consecutive years. During my interview, Todd shares his background growing up in a small, diverse community outside of Chicago that has helped to shape his core values and passions that he has as a leader today. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs, and today I'm with Todd Shapiro. And Todd, do you want to just start off and give a little bit of background on yourself?
Sure. Thank you, by the way. Thank you very much for having me. I'm the president and CEO of the Illinois CPA Society. Been with the organization for about 22 years now.
Oh, wow.
Spent the first 14 as the CFO and the last 8 now as the CEO. It's interesting because my background, I'll be honest, I'll come clean. I'm not a CPA. I may play one on TV, but I'm not a CPA. I am a finance person by background. I came out of the corporate finance world, large companies and mid-sized companies. I came out of that world that led me to here. So I'm a lifelong finance person,
Yeah.
but really now the last 8 years as a CEO here.
Well, and I think, I've interviewed a number of CEOs. They're not of these societies, and many are not CPAs. So
Yes.
It's really the passion for the profession and what you're doing. So
It is. A lot of them aren't even finance people by background.
right. Yeah.
Yes. No. Yeah. It's how being a finance person by background, I think, has helped me both in understanding the issues and in gaining some credibility with
Right.
members and other professionals. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, let's get into your story because we'd love to, our listeners just like to hear kind of where you began, where you grew up, what did your parents do, that sort of thing. So we'll start there.
Right, you go that far back. I'm from a small city, about a 60,000 person city, south of Chicago, not a suburb, very different, blue collar town. Parents, neither one had actually finished 4 years of college.
Okay.
So it was critical that all 3 boys were going to go to, yes, there were 3 boys in the house.
Okay.
We're all going to go to college. And, I'm one of those, I am the classic person who, God, I was good in math in high school. And so, of course, and the accounting was there. So went to college. This sounds kind of interesting. I went to college, but decided very early on by my junior year of college that audit tax wasn't sort of the path for me. I wanted to go the corporate route of corporate finance. And that literally, it sounds strange, but I didn't do this. I know some people, Kimberly Elson Taylor will tell you, she decided at the age of like 5 or 6, she would.
Right.
Yay. No. But I will tell you, by my junior year in college, I sort of said, okay, I can see myself as a CFO of a company someday.
Okay.
And the reason I kind of went to that corporate route was I right away, and even in college, and I may have had something to do with summer job I kind of always enjoyed the business of business.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sort of in a company I felt I could make a difference. I could get involved in decisions. I could get involved and really learn about the company, help to make decisions. And that's sort of outside of my very first job out of college was as an internal auditor. But that second job and on sort of got me on this trajectory where I am now.
Yeah. So what did your parents do?
My mom, spent time at home and then eventually became a teacher's aide.
Okay.
And actually, bless her heart, she was a saint. She worked with disabled children with disabilities, physically.
Okay.
So she really had a hard job in that. My father went to 2 years of college, dropped out, and became a real estate salesman and property insurance sale broker. So
Okay.
not a neither went to college, but it was the expectations were always focused on education and us all going to college.
And why was that for them?
I think it's one of these. I want my kids to have a better life than we
Mm-hmm.
do. And listen, I will tell you that one of the core part of the core of my soul is built on a sort of a family that was a middle income family in a diverse community, and I lived in a pretty diverse community, middle income family, diverse community. I will thank my parents for actually allowing me to grow up in that kind of a world because it sort of formulated me. But I think they probably always wanted their kids to have better, and they felt that. I think my father probably would tell you if he was alive, that, his regret was he made a mistake by not finishing college.
Yeah. Yeah. So what did you learn from growing up in a community like that?
Well,
Like,
I'll tell you, the very first thing you learn is my job at 15 and a half, I was working at your Cincinnati would understand this, steak. It wasn't a steak and shake. I say that because I believe steak and shake originated in Cincinnati.
yeah.
It had been, and it had gone private. And I worked there as a dishwasher at the age of 15 and a half.
Okay.
And I realized real quickly that was not what I want to do for my career. Um,
Because you were working alongside people that it was their
Well, it wasn't even that. It was going home at night, 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night and, you know, scraping the grease off your face from that.
right.
Life. And it's a hard life.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot in that kind of environment. I learned that you kind of learn core values that you have to make your way and what you say matters. I think being in a sort of middle income household, you value what you had, you treasured what you had, but you also realize that if you wanted more, you would have to strive to achieve that. It was a very diverse community, so I learned one of the key initiatives of the Illinois CPA side is focusing on diversity and inclusion, and that core value came out of some of the race. I'm a child of the late '60s, early '70s,
Right.
not born, but high school. So I lived through the days of rage. And
Yeah.
I and given the fact it was a diverse community, our school was heavily impacted by the days of rage. And I learned a lot about people, both good and bad, and about what I thought was right and wrong at a very, very young age.
So maybe you can give us a story. So what sticks out for you during that time?
What sticks out? I will tell you, I will share a very short story. I was working at a Jewel food store, grocery.
Mhm.
I moved on from the fast food place. Was tired of that. I was working at a grocery store, and there was a young individual who happened to be black, and it truly just happened to be black, and had tried to walk out of the store with then young people wouldn't know what this is, but empty pop bottles to get the deposit. And he went to my high school, and he did not like that. I didn't know this, and he went to my high school, and I noticed he noticed me at high school and decided he was going to try to make amends for me stopping him from absconding with some empty pop bottles. So you take them and then you bring them back and you collect money on them. It wasn't about the racial unrest at the time. It was about people. And you learn that right or wrong, people are people. You don't do the wrong thing no matter what, and you don't stereotype or you don't generalize just because of the situation at the time or the people or the color of somebody's skin. At the end of the day, you do something right or wrong. It's about doing right or wrong, not versus any set color. So I learned that was a story that was we eventually had to resolve our differences. Let's just leave it at that. And when I got on the school bus after we resolved our differences, um, siren going by. When we resolved our differences after I got on the school bus afterwards, everyone said, "Oh, this was a racial incident." I said, "No, it wasn't. This was a question of right versus wrong. Don't take it someplace that it shouldn't go."
Right.
That was a lesson that's it was close to 50 years ago, 45, 46 years
That's
ago.
how long this has been. I mean, it's been going on longer than that, obviously. I think that's so hard. So, with growing up in a diverse community and having those experiences, so how do you suggest people to have that conversation? Obviously, you can't always go out and have a fist fight.
Well, I didn't say it, I said we resolved our differences.
Okay,
Uh,
resolve their differences. Um, so,
um, how do you have
what?
that conversation? You're honest with people, and you have to be honest and try to understand. You got to walk in the other person's shoes. If you can't walk in
Right.
someone else's shoes, then you'll never understand them. You have to understand the situation they're in. You know, I when we're all we're all born, we all grow up. You know, 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 year olds, they don't know, they don't have any preconceived notions. All the
Right.
notions they have, they learn,
Hmm.
and it's justified because based upon your situation. So it really comes down to how do you have those conversations without having to resolve your differences. You have the conversations because you try to be empathetic to anybody and do I always you do the right thing. You got
Hmm.
to do the right thing. So how do you have those conversations? They're tough sometimes. They're tough
Yeah.
conversations, but you got to be honest. And if you really care and you're not doing it just to make a name for yourself or to get a headline or something like that, people understand. People all over of all races and creeds, they all understand.
Yeah. So, do you think it helped you living in a community like that
Oh,
as you've gone through it? How has it helped you?
it's helped me. You know, because I raised my kids in the suburbs of Chicago, so you look at the difference. I think it made an impact on me from one, never taking anything for granted because
Mhm.
I grew up where, we lived a comfortable middle income life, but it wasn't extravagant. You know, we had a small 3 bedroom house with 3 boys. Well, that means 2 of us shared a room.
Right.
And so you learn. I think I learned never to take anything for granted. Be appreciative of everything you have. I think I learned that if you want more and want better, you have to strive to do that. Whether it's working hard, if I had continued to work at the grocery store, truly when I was I loved my job at the grocery store, stocking groceries. I came home one night and said to my dad, I said, I may just go full time at the grocery store. My dad said, no, I don't think so. Because I think he saw that the path was limited. Even he didn't understand it. My father, to the day he died, never. I was a financial analyst. To the day my father died, he never had a clue what I did. He knew
Right.
what a lawyer did. He knew what a doctor did. But I said, I'm a financial analyst for Quaker Oats. He'd go, what do you do? And I explain it to him, and he'd kind of glass over.
Right.
Um, so I think that core stayed with me. Of don't take things for granted, work hard, be honest, and open to people. And always try to see the world through somebody else's eyes. And that was key. It was a very political household. My family was in politics. My uncle was a one-time governor of the state of Illinois. So I also learned I'm one of those weird people who think that most people who go into politics go into it because they want to right the wrongs of
Yeah.
the different.
I think people are well meaning and then, life happens sometimes and it's how you're going to react to those things, right? Yeah. And I think this is an important in that same vein of discussion. So when you're talking about picking a career that you didn't see, right? Like that wasn't in your household, which is a lot of the issues with diversity and inclusion in the accounting and finance profession of, if you don't see it, how do you know that's an opportunity for you? So what was your exposure?
Again, good math. I went to the University of Illinois. I was an accounting undergraduate. All was good. I really no different, by the way, than any freshman or sophomore today. They really have no idea what the world of audit or tax is. By luck, not by luck actually, by the fact that there's about a $500 million company based out of Kankakee, my hometown, and my father was on the school board with the CEO of the company, and I was able to get back then, by the way, they were called summer jobs. They weren't
Uh-huh.
in 1977. They weren't called internships. You had a summer job.
Okay. Yeah.
My summer job was as an internal auditor, and that was a life-changing moment for me, because I was going to be an accountant in accounting. I really didn't know what CPAs were. I had no idea about CPAs. I just knew accounting, and I uh, took this job as an internal auditor. And it wasn't, they didn't have me doing copies. I mean, I was doing bank recs. I was traveled constantly for 2 summers doing inventory observations. I was in the Southeast, and I was in Canada, and I was out on the East Coast, and it's a great summer job. But I kind of was a turning point, because I watched this other side of the company that I had no involvement with, the treasury function was where it was. And I was like, okay, but I really want to help. I want to be involved in making decisions about what the company's doing to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And, there is an inherent thing in my DNA that loves the idea of growth and loves the idea of building. I love to build. And
Mm-hmm.
I can't say, I don't know where that came from. I have no idea where it came from. But I noticed when I was an internal auditor that desire to grow that desire to help build a business wasn't satisfied. And literally went back and changed and went back and changed my major. That's why I didn't become a CPA. By the way, that is a regret I had. I didn't finally become a CPA, and I could have done it as a finance major. But
Yeah.
sort of went in that path of changed my major to finance, and it was going to be corporate finance. But that summer job was a truly a life-changing moment. Had I not had the summer job, it would have taken me a lot longer to find my path.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what sort of did it.
So when you moved on to after college and started going in pivoted path that you took.
Well, it didn't exactly pivot quite that fast, but
Okay.
I'll just finish. So I get out. The reality is reality. The company that I worked for, they wanted me to come and work in internal audit. I didn't want to live. It was time for me to get out of the 50,000 person town, 70 miles south of Kankakee. I worked in internal audit for a bank in Chicago for a year and a half. I knew that wasn't my path, but it was the job I could get. I went to work. Here's another. See, Amy, I'm 63. So there, Zenith Electronics, which your youngest viewers are
Yeah.
going to go, what's Zenith Electronics?
Yeah. I remember
Exactly.
having a TV that was Zenith.
Yeah, they were only the second largest TV company in the
Yeah.
world, back in the 70s. They had an opening for an internal audit job. And, you got to take a chance. So
Right.
I went out and interviewed with them, and I will tell you this. Very first interview of the day, they had a whole day set up for me, talking to different departments and such. And I talked to one person, the very first thing, and he says, so why do you want to come work for Zenith in internal audit? And I looked him right in the eye. I wouldn't recommend this all the time in an interview. And I said, I don't. I said, I have no desire to work in internal audit. I really want to be a financial analyst. If it takes me working in internal audit to get it, then I'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, wait a minute. And he walked out. He came back and said, we're going to change the schedule for today. So instead of talking to the director of internal audit, the manager of internal audit, the controller, you're going to talk to these 4 people who were in financial analysis, directors from financial analysis, over the course of your morning. And we'll have you talk to the director of internal audit too, because at least we'll keep one of those on the schedule. And that was it.
So you ended up getting the job as the financial analyst? That's
Yeah.
great. What an open guy. Like, you don't
Well,
necessarily get
open or stupid. So
that. But it's important. Like, you see a good talent.
Yeah.
That's an important thing that he did.
Well, I think the other thing that I've learned is, I've told my son this, I have 2 kids. One actually is a CPA, and I say this to young people all the time. The key to being, in my mind, to being successful in the world of business is understanding and being proactive and understanding data and using analysis. And as I went through my morning with that individual, and we talked about why I wanted to be in finance, it's all about your thinking process. And I think he saw something in me that felt I could come into the business as a financial analyst and be able to contribute and help the businesses grow. And I think that, That
Yeah.
was, yeah, and I think that's the core of my thinking process.
Yeah. So once you got into corporate and that side, was it what you expected?
Well, was it what I expected? This is so again, dating myself,
Yeah.
computers, what the heck is a computer?
Right.
I have a slide I'm doing for a young professional conference next week, and on the slide I show a picture of an abacus, a slide rule, a portable PC,
Yeah.
desktop, a portable PC, and then a laptop finally, and a mainframe. Um, yeah, it was actually. I was luckier than most. The company I worked for, Zenith Electronics, really was kind of a baptism by fire company. Is this 24-year-old financial analyst? I'm the key advisor to the director of black and white TV products, audio products, video products, and I'm actually sitting in their budgeting and forecasting meetings, providing feedback on what I think is going to be successful, not successful, which is, in hindsight, was crazy. What the heck did I know?
So they were really empowering.
Well, it was, but it really was down to the person. You had to be able, and you had to know your stuff. You had to learn. You had to do the analysis, and I always believe and will always believe I am an analyst. I may be the CEO, but I truly am at the core of my soul, and that has been the case since high school.
Right.
I am an analyst. I analyze, I process information, I analyze information. I'll tell you, I don't believe in intuition. I believe everything is subconscious thought. So I really don't believe in intuition. Everything comes down to understanding, analyzing, and processing information. And so it was what I expected. Now, we had green bar paper, 7-count green bar paper. We didn't have computers. And, you were out, you'd be at work till 11:30. Public accounting was a lot. Well, we were there till 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and sometimes back at 7 in the morning. It was, when all of a sudden one day in the room there appeared these three things. We didn't know what these things were. They were these personal computers, because Zenith was making monitors, so we had three personal computers, and we're like, what are those?
Yeah. I'm
How
not
do we
agree.
use those? Oh, what? We're gonna learn SuperCalc? What is SuperCalc?
Yeah.
And so even from that, yes, it was what I thought it would be. And I went from there to a company called Quaker Oats, another company that doesn't exist, but people know. And, a marketing-driven company. But the way you were successful as a finance professional, what made you different than any other finance professional, was if you could demonstrate the ability to process information, analyze information, and then coalesce that into a thought that was going to help drive a business or not drive a business. So yeah, it truly, I will tell you, and some would say, well, I was lucky because I got in great projects. I would say that I got a great project because I was good.
Yeah.
As with anything in life, I'm also a believer that 50% of the opportunities that arise in front of you are because you're in the right place at the right time, and 50% of it is when that opportunity arises, you're able to step into it and perform.
Well, and I think it's still really applicable advice as well, because even though you're not on the green bar paper, but as AI and machine learning have come into play and do a lot of those calculations for you, it's still what sets you apart as how you process and analyze information.
I think that I think more than ever, and I espouse to this. I was lucky enough. I'm even coming to the society was all just happenstance, but I truly believe with AI and RPA coming in, I am a believer. I hear people say all the time, "Oh, we've been through Excel and we've been through this kind of technology thing," and I'm like, "This is not Excel. This is a whole new world." I stand in a room sometimes and I will ask attendees in a meeting. I said, "Has the profession, you could take society, been through a technological revolution in the last 25 years, going back to 1995, maybe 1993. So maybe now it's like 27 years. If we've been through a technological revolution," and inevitably every hand in the room goes up. And I said, "No way. We have been through a tremendous evolution of technology. We've had all these productivity tools which have changed everything and allowed us to do more. The revolution is coming. AI is coming. And to your point, what will separate the wheat from the chaff in the future with AI and RPA are those who can process the information, understand the information, think about it strategically. And I think my ability, I've always thought one thing I'm decent as is being an analyst and probably decent strategic thinking skills. And I think that's with AI and RPA, it's going to be more important than it ever was.
Yeah. So how did you end up with the Illinois Society?
Well, sadly, I worked at Quaker Oats. I went from Zenith Electronics to Quaker Oats, and I worked, well, it's sort of sadly, ended up good. I worked for Zenith Electronics, Quaker Oats for a couple, 10 years, and decided to make a move. I, not surprising, Quaker was a great company, but it was a little bigger than I wanted.
Yeah.
A little bit smaller company where I could have a bigger impact. I went to a company called Helene Curtis. Most people would go, what do they do? Well, they made, you think about Suave, or you think about Finesse, Suave, Salon Select and other brands, major brands of Degree deodorant. And they were in Chicago. I went to work for them as a director of finance. And for my mind, that was my last move. This is the age, this is, I'm old school.
Yeah.
You went to work for a company, kind of like, parents, well, my dad worked at the same company for 40 years. Well, okay, this is my last move. I thought Helene Curtis was a great company to work for. Their level of financial sophistication was not at the same level as Quaker Oats. Zenith was a great place of fire and brimstone. Quaker had, for a marketing company, had very sophisticated financial theories and practices and thoughts. Helene Curtis didn't, so I was able to bring that knowledge, that experience from Quaker, and that was my last job. That was it. I started there in 1992. Sold the company in 1997. And interesting. This says, what a finance person. I was a finance person. They launched a strategic planning initiative in 1995, or actually, so they sold in 95. They launched a strategic planning initiative in 95, and they involved 100 people. They involved plant workers in the strategic initiative process. It was very broad, and they narrowed down to 30 people, and they narrowed down to 10 people. I was a finance director. I wasn't the finance. I was amongst a number of them. And I was, maybe it's luck, maybe it's good, luck involved in that last part. And at the end of the day, they decided that to sell the company was the right solution versus trying to continue to maintain an independent company. So the reality is, they said, you want to go to the East Coast? I said, no, I don't. Job opened up the Illinois Space Society. Now, even some of your listeners are going, can you imagine going from Unilever, which is now, because I was part of Unilever. I didn't leave right away. I was there for 2 years after the sale. So I'm now working for a 50 billion, 500,000 employee company. And I walk into the doors of the Illinois Space Society, interview as their CFO. And I thought, there's no way, we all know that. Somebody would walk in the door and say, well, this is not going to work. And for some reason, the CEO at that time liked my way of thinking. And I looked at him and I said, if you want a guy who's going to just do the accounting, I'm not your guy. But if you want a guy who's going to be a strategist, I'm your guy. And in 98.
Look at you at your interviews telling everybody what you're going to do. I'm seeing a trend.
It was kind of interesting.
But it is good. I think that sets people apart, right? Like when they know what they're good at, like it's not any good in an interview to say you're good at something you're not, because then you're not going to be happy in the job.
Absolutely. I'm going to work for the Illinois Space Society at that time had 60 people, 63 people. I'm coming from a massive global company with sophisticated methods, and I had to be honest, if you want me to come in and just do the accounting, I'm not the guy. That's not my expertise. And so yeah, I was once again honest, and I worked here, and I started to, I did the accounting, and then all of a sudden I launched. The society has a brand that we manage called the Center for Corporate Financial Leadership. I launched that. I launched it because notably CPA societies in the profession don't do enough to support the thousands and thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of CPAs who work in the corporate world. So I realized that because I had come out of that world. So I launched our Center for Corporate Financial Leadership, started developing education, along with all my CFO responsibilities and administrative responsibilities, and sort of did that. And our CEO left in 2000 and the end of 2012, and I said, I'll throw my name out there. Sure, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, what have you found, because, going back to your beginnings, being in a diverse community, the society isn't always as diverse as that. So, what have you done as far as this effort? Because, there's definitely a spotlight on it right now.
Yeah.
I've been in a number of conversations where I think it's an uncomfortable conversation for many accountants, CPAs. They know it's an issue. They don't know where to begin.
Mhm.
What is Illinois CPA Society doing to try to help, in this conversation?
First thing was actually to make it important. And
Hmm.
again, going back to my foolishness, when you interview for something, I'm interviewing for the CPA, for the CEO job, along with other candidates, external candidates. And I told them in the interview that if I'm selected, that diversity and inclusion will become a key initiative. It was not a key strategic initiative in the Illinois Space Society before 2013. And I said, if I am chosen for this position, that will be a key issue. That's a non-starter if it's not.
Hmm.
And I was I used some interesting ways to describe where I thought it had to start in the boardroom. And let's call it what it is. I'm interviewing with a search committee that had no diversity on it.
Right.
Diversity. And my first comment to the room was, of the interviewers, again, why do you say these things, Todd? I'm sitting there with the search committee. I said, we cannot continue to be a board. It has to start right here. It has to start in the room here. I said, we cannot continue to be a board of white men and white women
Yeah.
if we are to really embrace diversity as a strategic initiative. It has to start in this room. I actually maybe use the word old in there too, because so, again, why would you sit in a room interviewing people and then refer to them as old white people? They were.
Right.
But it was to bring a point. So what have we done? One, we decided to make it, so you made it, one was to start beginning to increase the diversity of our board of directors, because it has to start there.
Hmm.
It has to start with the leadership of the organization. And that's what the board of directors. And the other was to invest in staff, invest in initiatives. So for instance, we have what's called our Mary T. Washington Wiley program. Mary T. Washington Wiley was the first female African-American or Black CPA in the world. She got her CPA certificate in 1943.
What was her name?
Mary T. Washington Wiley,
Okay.
first one ever. And one of our former board members was a partner at the firm that she started, and she provided the pathway for hundreds, if not thousands, of people to become CPAs. Because if you think about the 1950s, you couldn't become a CPA because you had to have the experience.
Right.
And if you couldn't get the experience, no one would hire you.
Hmm.
One of this former board member who eventually worked for a firm went to the University of Illinois, graduated, I think, in 1953, and went to interview for a job. And when he went to interview for a job, University of Illinois, it was a great accounting school back in the 50s, in the middle of the 50s. Interviewed with a large accounting firm, large national accounting firm. And they told him, we'd love to hire you, but we can't because we can't send you out to clients.
Wow.
And eventually, Mary T. hired this young man. So she became a CPA because somebody took her under his wing. So she got the experience, started her own firm in Chicago, and she literally provided the pathway for hundreds of people. She would hire, you would get the experience, which gave the ability to become a CPA.
That's a really interesting,
oh,
it's just an interesting thing because, again, when you don't walk in someone else's shoes, which I think is, an important key here, when they took the requirement of not having experience, I always thought that was a bad thing because, to be certified as a CPA, I think it's good to say, like, yeah, that person's like worked in the field, but I never thought about that being diversity issue that was an inhibitor to someone becoming a CPA. So that's really interesting.
So as I was saying, this individual I'm referring to, not Mary T,
Mhm.
name's Lester McKeever. Lester received the ICPA's Gold Medal Award last year. Last year he was awarded the ICPA's Gold Medal Award, which to brings almost tears to my eye today because Lester is my hero.
Mhm.
He would tell you I'm insane to say that, but Lester truly is one of my heroes in life. And he helped form our Mary T. Washington Wiley Fund, which is an endowment. It's an endowed fund. And we now, so how are we trying to pay it forward to make a difference? One is our Mary T. Washington Wiley Fund that we've now raised over $1 million for. And every year in January, bring 25 to 27 individuals up to Chicago from their college sophomores, juniors, and seniors. We put them through and sometimes in graduate student programs. They don't come from the U of I's of the world. They tend to come from smaller schools. We put them through a week of intern training, and not intern training is how to do an audit, but literally an intern training program of how do you carry on a conversation, how do you dress, how do
Mhm.
you do a business meal, how do you
Right.
behave, how do you learn in a professional environment. We have accounting firms come in and talk about the accounting side of it, and at the end of that week, especially the firms that have been significant contributors, of which all the big four, plus I think some others, Grant and some others have been participants in that, are participants. They interview these kids, and most of these kids end up, a majority have gotten internships with these firms, which is a life-changing experience. They, the accounting firms weren't going to the colleges these people went to.
Right.
So they have the opportunity. We provided them the training and then the opportunity to actually interview and get an internship. So that's one way. The other is we have a pipeline issue on diversity.
Mhm.
Uh, we could take, you're not going to, everyone covets a black or Hispanic CPA, person to hire in the firm, but they leave just like everybody else, and they go and they don't stay in public accounting. Well, we have a pipeline issue. This is not a profession that is sought after. It's not an accounting major that's sought after. It's not a college major that's sought after by many in diverse communities, the Black and Hispanic communities. So we go out into the high schools, usually with somebody who is of a diverse background, and we talk to them about how an amazing career this is. We look and we get very direct. We go, in 4 years, picture yourself making 65 or $70,000 a year.
Mhm.
And those are numbers, when you go into the inner city of Chicago, those are numbers that you can't even fathom. So
Right.
we very much believe that we've got to start in the high schools, if not younger, espousing the benefits of this profession, both the financial security, the financial benefits, the ability to be a player in the business world. And and by doing that, hope we get these kids to go to college and major in accounting. Because
Yeah.
when they hear accounting, they think H&R Block down the street. They think tax and H&R Block down the street. They
Right.
don't think. In fact, when we talk to high schools, we can't even say, if you get an accounting degree, you can go work at Walgreens, because they'll think, I don't need accounting to go work at Walgreens.
Right. 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 Right.
But if you get an accounting degree, you go work at Boeing. Because by the way, most of these kids don't know the big four firms.
Yeah.
Work at Boeing. You can work for the FBI. You can work for all these. The paths just open, and so that's the most significant thing we've done outside of scholarships is our Mary T training program, and really focusing on trying to change the pipeline. It's going to take time. We are a short-term society, and when I retire, we will not have accomplished uh, the change I want, but we'll have made a dent maybe.
Yeah. Well, and I just love stringing. That's why I like starting from the beginning and stringing the story because, like, you can tell someone wouldn't know why you're passionate about that issue, if you didn't know your background and
That's very true. A lot of people will go, "Why do you care?" And I will say,
right.
it started, with that core upbringing. It
Yeah.
really started with the core upbringing, and then really living through the days of rage and looking at the days of rage as people are people, and the days of rage were there because people felt left out.
Yeah.
How do you avoid
Which
it?
is often what's happening now.
Yes.
I mean, all of this stuff is repetition of history until people feel heard or,
No. Yeah, we sent out an email to our membership after uh, the killing of George Floyd, and it was titled "We Need to Do More." And I truly believe we do need to do more. We can't rest on our laurels. We can't just say we've done enough, and we've got to figure out what that means. And again, how do we be open to hiring somebody who doesn't look like me,
right.
hiring somebody who doesn't have the background I have,
Hmm.
being open to the fact, you may not have gone to the best school, but do you have going to the best school doesn't make you that doesn't make the DNA of being a good thinker.
No.
You have that DNA or you don't. And can we bring that out of people?
Well, and I think what's also important is what each person can do. And, a lot of times, you know, using your role as an example, you wouldn't say like, oh, well, this is a passion of mine and I can incorporate this as being a CEO of an accounting professional society. But like we can find a way in everything we do, whatever issue it is, if it's in the environment, diversity, schools, whatever, really hits home. I think it's important to shape the work you do to make the social impacts you want to make as
Well,
well.
and then it comes down to that again. I can that being an analyst, when it came down to what are we going to do, because you can throw money, you can put money into scholarships, which is important.
Right.
Help people be there to achieve that dream financially is important. But that's really when it came down to the pipeline. Our high school pipeline program didn't exist, and it exists because that's where the analysts do. That's why I brought it all together. I've got
Information.
yeah, information and processing information going, look at the numbers. I said early on, I said, I want to see the number of students who graduate with an accounting degree at Illinois colleges by race. And I want to see that as a percentage of the population. And they showed me the numbers. And I said, there's your problem.
Hmm.
We can do everything in the world we want. But
Yeah.
as long as they're that underrepresented, the people of diverse backgrounds are that underrepresented as a percent of the total population in major in accounting, you aren't going to solve this problem.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been great. I really appreciate you sharing your story. So I like to end with rapid fire questions.
Sure.
So you pick a category. So family and friends, money, spiritual, or health.
Family and friends.
Okay. So things or actions I don't have that I want with my family and friends.
More time. I work too much.
That started with finishing at 11:30 at night. You gotta.
I don't do that anymore, but it's you know, it, I, you know, it, I was told once, I was told when I was interviewing the job, boy, I know why you want this job because it's probably get a great job and you don't have to work that hard. I said, are you nuts? I work every night till I'm
Right.
doing emails or something every night till 8 or 9 o'clock at night.
Right.
No, more time.
Okay. Things or actions that I do have that I want.
Um, I am blessed to have a wonderful family. I'm old enough to be a grandpa, which means I have two wonderful grandkids. I have two kids who are successful, um, and successful in many ways, not just with their jobs, but successful at what they're doing with their lives. I have a wonderful wife, so I'm what things or actions I have that I want is an unbelievable family, and I have great friends and fantastic coworkers.
Awesome. Things or actions that I don't have that I don't want.
Things or actions I don't have COVID-19. I don't want it.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm doing
Fingers
everything in my
crossed.
power not to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe. I also don't think. I just had lunch with a managing partner of a firm today, and yes, it was indoors, but we took appropriate. So I'm not letting it. I'm not letting this paralyze me per se.
Right.
Um, but yeah, if you had things or actions that, and I don't think I ever wanted to be a professional dishwasher again. I do
Well,
tell
there
my
you
when I,
go.
when I do the dishes, when I do the dishes after dinner, which I usually do, I tell my wife, I said, well, I'm better at this because I'm a professional dishwasher.
She's like, good, good.
Yeah, she
You
does.
stick with that. Yeah.
Actually, says, I'll do them. I say, you made dinner. Let me do this. It's my
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. All right, last one. Things or actions that I do have that I don't want.
Yeah, and I'm going to go off the current because one of the great things that I have really enjoyed is being CEO for the last almost 8 years, 8 years, is I have met hundreds, if not thousands, of our members. I
Hmm.
believe that I go out, I talk to members, I will go on 40 to 50 firm visits a year. And I don't mean just stopping, I mean meet and sit and talking for an hour and a half with the managing partner or the partners. Um, we do town hall forums. I thrive on, we have our accounting summit that you're going to be talking at. That is one of my favorite events because it's exhausting over 2 days. But I will talk to hundreds of members, and when I retire, I literally am saying to people that I want to have the ability to have those members and interact those members as I leave, which is
Yeah.
about 8 years. And we have, and same, we have a phenomenal staff. Well, we've gotten ourselves, we are living in isolation. So things I have that I don't want, even though we have few people on our staff, we don't come into our office, we're voluntary, we have 4 to 6 people come to the office. I miss my staff.
Yeah.
And I miss seeing them. And yeah, we can do this Zoom thing. And we've been using Zoom. We started using Zoom 3 years ago. So it wasn't like this was a new product for us.
Right.
Um, but I miss being around people. I don't know, when I do my session, I'm the keynote kickoff for our summit next week. And the reality is I'm doing our learning suites here in front of a camera. And I will not ever forget the first time we had our summit when I was CEO back in 2013. I'd never spoken in front of 1,000 people. I'm in
Right.
a time, I'm going to walk up on our stage. We had a room full of 1,000 people. And somebody came up to me, they said, "Are you nervous? I mean, are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm ready to go. Let's bring it on. We're getting
Yeah.
ready to rock and roll." And I stand on that stage with 1,000 people and I get my energy from our members. And this time I'm going to stand in a conference room in front of a camera, and it's going to be, well, I'm doing mine live. I know most people are recording. I'm doing mine live to an empty camera. And that's an isolation that is an action I have that I don't want.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard. I'm being a speaker myself. It's
Oh,
definitely not getting that, you know, eyeball contact where you're like, oh, they're with me, or
I
I need
get
to
the fun.
shift this
Oh,
topic. And yeah.
the fun. There's people when we have our summit, usually, there's a stage that's about 3.5 feet, 3 feet high, maybe 4 feet high. And to amuse myself, when I'm presenting sometimes in front of a group that large, I'll walk right up to the edge of the stage and have my feet hanging off the stage.
Right.
And some of my staff will be in the front row, and they will see me do this. They will see the front of my foot fall hanging, and they will be waiting
For you to
for me
fall.
to fall off the stage. And
Yeah.
for me, that's fun, right? I'm sick.
Yeah.
Uh, and that kind of interaction just doesn't exist now.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, you have to shift expectations. And like we were saying, just living in the present moment. And
Yep. Yeah.
yeah. So, well, thank you so much for sharing your story today, and very excited to share with our listeners the things you've been doing at the society that I think will be helpful for
Well,
people.
I really think this is great. What you're doing is great because you're showing a side of people that my members wouldn't normally see. So thank you for doing,
Awesome.
and thank you for having me.
Great.
All right. Take care. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
You too. And now for our mindful moments. What a journey that Todd took us on in his very fascinating career, from starting out in a very small town outside of Chicago and not being a CPA, but starting out thinking he was going to be a CPA and working into finance and really learning about his background with his parents not going to college and their importance that they placed on education, and also what he experienced as a younger person, younger man, that has influenced him throughout his career. I think it's important for us to take those moments to really identify what are the things that have impacted us most in our lives so that we get a better understanding of how we thread those themes through. And one of the things that was really impacting him as a younger man was the diversity in his community and the differences of understanding of how each person walks through life and what their experience is, but also understanding that a conversation needs to happen, that there can be a lot of misunderstandings based on outward behavior, but not necessarily what someone intended. And I think a lot of unrest happens when we don't have those meaningful conversations. And when we talk about mindfulness, mindfulness is being silent and listening to the other side, not coming up with what your argument is, but really truly trying to understand what the experience is of somebody else. Whether you agree with it or not is another discussion. But if we are going to have a conversation, it's important that we're taking in all those inputs of why someone reacted the way that they did or chose a behavior the way that they did. Because if we don't ask the question, which he gave, a great example of working at the grocery store and another teenager stealing those empty bottles and the interpretation that both sides had of what occurred. If we don't have the conversation, then what we're going to do is just apply what we know, because we've only walked in our shoes, to the experience. And that's when conversations go off the rail, because we're not listening to each other and we're not actually trying to understand what is happening on the other side. And if we can come, maybe not to full agreement, it doesn't mean we have to completely buy into any one person's story. But if we get those little nuggets of learning along the way, how that can open our minds to the next experience and the next experience and the next experience. And we keep growing as humans. Now, the other thing that was important in his story was, as he did his pivots in careers, understanding that what set him apart was not just putting the numbers together, but how he processed information and analyzed it. And when we talk about processing information and analyzing it, it doesn't always mean that that is numbers, that it is taking in, just like that story that I was referring to previously, taking in all the inputs, understanding other people's perspective, taking that information, and if we're good at analysis, then we can then take it from a point with non-emotion so that we can better come up with solutions. And so that helps us think more strategically. So whichever area of our life that we apply it to, we can take a skill that maybe we learn at work that we're really good at, and how do we apply that skill in different aspects of our lives to gain a better understanding of our humanness and how we connect together. Which really lastly brings me to his passion around diversity and inclusion at the Illinois Society, that I think a lot of times we don't even realize that why we're so passionate about a certain area. And it can be people you wouldn't expect to be passionate about different topics. So we should never make an assumption from the outside look where he's a white male that is in a role like that, and then assume that he hasn't had experience with this, which he demonstrated his experience with it, and why this was such an important issue for him as he became CEO of the society. And it's important that one of the things that he talked about was, it's not just about saying you have the initiative, but it's the actions that you take afterward to follow through and make sure that these initiatives actually come to a conclusion, that there are ways to actually make an impact and shift it. We can throw money at an issue or create funds, but if there's not the actual follow-up, the education, and analysis of the information of how successful that initiative is, then we're basically just saying we have an initiative, but we're not doing much about it. And what he's demonstrating as an example is, what can each of us do to impact issues that are important to us, whatever they may be. And those can be very small things. It doesn't have to mean money. It just has to mean that we're actually opening our eyes and seeing what kind of action we can take to make things better for the people around us. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. I hope you will take a moment to pause before entering back into your day to reflect on this podcast and note 1 to 2 actions you are inspired to do from today's conversation that you could incorporate into your life. To read the full blog and listen back to this episode or any other, you can find them at www.amyvetter.com/Breaking Beliefs podcast and related videos on my YouTube channel. For daily inspiration, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Amy Vetter CPA. I hope that you will choose to like this and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and more so that you can join us for more inspiration on our next episode.